The TrekWorks YouTube channel is sponsored by Tenacontrols. And by HDA ModelWorks, suppliers of scale model lighting products, detail parts, and complete model kits. Visit HDAModelWorks.com today. Well, hello again everybody. Welcome to part 5 of our 1/350 scale Klingon Katinga build. I'm having so much fun building this model. This is a really fun model to work on. It's just been a blast so far. Everything's going really good on it. We got our painting done on the bottom from our last video. I've been putting a few of the small little detail parts on it here and there. Got the engines done on the back. Got the rear bulkheads put on here. A little bit of weathering going on there. I'm weathering each little piece or each little section as I go, tying it all in together. And I'm getting pretty close to being able to put the big lid on the top here, which is a big step of getting this model finished. The warp engine nacelles are pretty much done. So I'm wrapping up here by finishing up some of the electronics. And a couple of the commenters on the YouTube video asked about seeing this assembly that we have to put together here for the torpedo launcher from the Tenacontrols electronics kit for this. So I'll just give you a quick look at it. This is the circle you see here is the photo etched disc that comes in the Paragrafix set with either the detail set or the shuttle base set. I think these discs come in both Paragrafix sets. It's just a round brass disc with 8 holes drilled around the outside and 1 in the center. So you're going to mount your LEDs per the Tenacontrols instructions. The Tenacontrols uses, I think they're 1.8 millimeter is what they use in their setup for the amber or orange LEDs that go around the outer perimeter. I decided to use regular 3 millimeter. I wanted them to be just a little bit brighter. There was enough room to fit those in here, and in the center I went ahead and used a 3 millimeter red LED. These are just standard LEDs. You don't have to put any resistors on these. These are controlled by the control board, and all the resistance is already set up on the output side of the control board, so you don't have to worry about that. So basically what you do here is you start off by gluing down how I did it anyway, was I glued down all 8 of the outer amber colored LEDs, and as I got the first one in place I just took a little bit of CA glue and put a tiny little drop on there and made sure I held it centered over the hole. The very tip of the LED actually kind of goes down in that hole just a tiny little bit, so it'll kind of self-center itself. And put a little drop of CA on there and then hit it with some kicker really quick, some aerosol kicker to make it set up really fast. And then I just repeated that process all the way around. Now you want to kind of pay attention to make it easier on you at the end. Either keep all the positive or all the negative side of the LEDs, the wires that come off, the longer one being the positive, the shorter the negative. Keep those all to the outside. You can do either one. You can do the positive or the negative, but that way you're not going to have to crisscross over and try to figure out which is which. And then once you get that all done, you come back and do all the the center LED, which is basically the same principle, dropping it straight down in the center and then gluing that. Then I kind of ran some glue over the top of all the LEDs from the back side, because that's not going to matter. All you're going to see is everything from the front. And so we were done gluing everything down. So then I kind of slightly bent outward all of the negative. In my case, I went negative to the outside. I bent those legs out just a tiny little bit. And then I just took some of my regular 30 gauge wire, stripped it off, stripped the insulation of it off, and you just start going around the outer ring, connecting them all together. I would make like one wrap around each leg, pull it to the next one, wrap it all the way around, and then pull it tight at the end. Then I came back with my solder and just put a little drop of solder on each one. And then the positive side, all the legs, I just kind of squeezed them together into a kind of a big cone shape and soldered those all together. And so we had that taken care of. So the outer ring was done. Then it's just a matter of soldering a red wire onto the positive and a black wire onto the negative of the red LED that's in the center. And once I got done with that, I kind of folded everything back up as close as I could get it without worrying about it touching. And so we're done with this assembly now. Now, one important thing you want to do is you want to mark your wires here. I marked which one's the red LED and which one is the amber. So we're at the point now where we're going to go ahead and mount this in the model. And that's the really easy part, because you just take this disc and there's a tiny little notch. I left a little bit of the tab left over from the photo etch where it came off, and that actually lines up with this little notch that's here. I'm going to zoom in on this for you a little bit if I can. There's a little notch right there at the top of this that it'll kind of line up with. And you just kind of stick it on there and make sure it's down there nice and flat and everything. And I'm going to go ahead and look at it from this angle here, because I'm looking at the circle on the inside there and making sure it's kind of centered and everything. And then all I'm going to do is just put some CA on this, guys. I'm going to get my CA glue ready here, get my kicker ready, and I'm going to put a little spot right here on the top, a little spot on the side, and then I'm just going to hit that really quick just to kind of lock it in place. Don't need a whole blast of kicker on there, just a little squirt, and it'll activate that right away. I'll just kind of hold on to it for a second or two to make sure it sets up here. And we're nice and centered there from the outside view. Now I can let go of this. So now I'm going to put some more CA, and I'm just going to let this do a sort of a capillary action. I'm going to let it run all the way down the sides, kind of help it along a little bit. And I can see it already going and wrapping itself all the way around to the bottom there. And I'll just let that do that for a second. Maybe see a little drip come off it. That'll tell me that it's made it all the way to the bottom. And there we go. So then I can hit this again really quick. Okay, so now we've got our torpedo launcher at the rear mounted. That's all good to go. So now we want to think about how we're going to light block this, because when this lights up, I don't want all these lights, coming on and lighting up my windows in the front, lighting up my engines and all that other stuff. So really simple way to do this, I'm just going to use some regular electrical tape, which will basically last forever. And we're just going to wrap it up here, guys. I'm going to be really careful not to squeeze my wiring too much when I do this. Get a little piece off of here and ready to go. And we'll seal this guy up for the rest of eternity, or however long the model lasts, hopefully a long time. So I'm going to start off here. I'm going to get my tweezers to help me out here. I'm going to kind of pull it underneath. Let me dry off this kicker here first. But an air will take care of that. Okay, I'm going to pull a little bit of tape underneath of this whole thing first, and then make my first wrap if I can do that. Okay, I'm going to get all the way up against this bulkhead so it seals up really good. Alright, make that first wrap. And Like I said, I'm going to try not to squeeze too much on the wiring if I can possibly help it. This back underneath here. We're not going to need this much tape, but grab a hold of that and slide it through. It's wanting to stick to itself. Didn't say it was going to be easy, but we'll get it done here. Alright, get loose of this stuff and we'll pull it on through. Got a little bit of a knot right there, but that'll straighten out. Doubled over on itself. I'm going to have to pull it apart here. We'll just work with it. It won't be as difficult the shorter we get the tape here. There's other ways you can do this. You could spray a whole bunch of paint on it, but it's such a kind of a cluster looking thing that I kind of looked at and I thought, well, it'll take a lot of paint to cover that up, so we'll just go ahead and do it this way. And this will work out just fine. Just have to fiddle with it a little bit. Get this to come underneath for me again. It's really sticking on everything more than I thought it would. That's good though. That means it's good sticky tape. It'll hold together once we get it fully wrapped. Okay, I managed to do that without folding this one up that time. That's good. I'm not going to put a lot of pressure on it because I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to squeeze my my wiring together too much there. I left myself a little bit of clearance in case I did accidentally bump them a little bit. Try to be sure. All right, now we're getting somewhere here. Okay. Stop right there and seal that up. I think I'm going to use just a tiny little bit more there on the end. Go up those wires just a little bit. As you can see, I've got the rest of my board kind of secured in here. Let me get you up a little bit and just maybe a tad closer. Got all my wiring secured down here, got it all zip tied together, kind of neatening it up a little bit. And I've got a bunch of wires left over. As I said in the last video when I talked about the electronics a little bit, I'm not using all the outputs on this board. This board is designed to where you can use it lights everything on the model basically. You can use it to hook up to the impulse glowing red engine, all the ship's window lighting, the engines, which I did use that output. Even though it just lights the engines, you could hook those directly up to power if you wanted to. And you know, all your other little effects, of course your torpedo effects and all that will be controlled off the control board. But there's several outputs on here, like I said, for the windows and that impulse engine, which I'm just going to wire up directly to power, which I don't need these outputs. So once I figure out what those are, I'll go ahead and cut these a little bit short, and I'll bundle them up and tuck them off to the side here nice and neat, and they'll be a lot better looking than they are right now. So what I've got to do right now is I've got to figure out which outputs go to my torpedo effect, because I want to test it here before I call it a wrap. I have already tested it on the bench a couple times just sitting here, and it works perfectly fine. So I've got to, my instructions that came with my board were they were outdated. Ralph updated this kit and he has it now called version C, which the wiring diagram changed a little bit because he changed the effect of the firing torpedoes a little. And so I've got to pull up his email here, and he's got a file that he sent me here that shows the wiring schematic, so we'll go ahead and open that. And then we're going to scroll on down here. And we want to look up the rear photon torpedo launcher. Front torpedo, rear torpedo. Okay. It says the 9 negative cathodes of the torpedo and tube illumination LEDs connect to the black wire on the mating connector number 2, then connect the anodes plus of the 8 orange LEDs to the brown or purple wire on matching connector number 3, then connect the plus side of your red LED to the red wire on the mating connector number 3. So we've got to find, with our handy dandy actual schematic, even though this is the, now it's time to back you guys back up. This is the actual instruction sheet that it comes with. Even though it's outdated, these connector locations are still the same. So we have connector 1 here, and 2 and 3. So I'm just taking a look at my board to make sure I'm looking at it the same way. And we need to turn it around just so I'm looking at it the same, so I don't make a backwards mistake and grab the wrong wires. Okay, so we're looking at the board the same way it's laid out on the instructions now, and we want to go for the, let's do the 9 negatives first. So we're looking at black wire on connector number 2, and connector number 2 is this one right here, the one at the very top. So let's find that black wire. It may already be in use, which it is. It's this wire right. Let's see, where did we put that one? It's this wire right here, which is winding up being a common ground for the entire, pretty much everything that's getting wired in here. I noticed that a pattern developing as I was putting everything together. So we're going to connect our negative from, let me get my solder iron warmed up here. We're going to connect the negative from our rear launcher here. The 8 LEDs, I'm going to go ahead and pull this tape off of here since we don't need to have that marked anymore. I can remember what it is. Slide that off. And we're going to use this negative guy right here. And that's going to connect up to here, so I'm going to have to trim this a little. Let's get you back in the picture here a little bit. Okay. Really like using this 30 gauge wire with the vinyl coating on it now. Like I've showed before, you can strip it with your fingernails, and it's more flexible and easy to work with than the old magnet wire that I was using for a long time. I switched to this stuff a couple years ago, and I get this from Jerry again at HDA Model Works. He carries this in a few different colors. I usually go for the red and the black, basically to, for plus and minus. Works on pretty much everything. Got that connected. Now we're going to take our negative from our, I'm going to tape that down just in case, so when I do pull the label off this one I don't mix it up. Everybody remember that first one there was for the outer ring. Okay, so now we're going to take our negative for the center firing red photon and connect that to the same spot. Get that nice and tucked in underneath of there. Following the same path we took with the last one. And this one's going to be too long too, so we'll trim it up a little bit. Okay, stripped a little bit too much wire, but that's all right. Get that out of the way. Okay, I'm going to wrap this one up. Now these two main terminal junctions, if you want to call it that, where I've brought all this wiring together, is basically plus and minus. that's where my power is going to come in too. I've got to drill a little hole right here at the very top where the mounting rod comes up in. Then my power wires will come up through the base and up into this and connect directly onto that. Now we're going to mount another board. I can't close this up yet until my board gets here. We're going to mount another small board right here, which is the remote control board, and that'll have a couple wires coming off of it. My power coming in will connect to one side of it. The output side of it will connect to my power here, because the remote's turning the power off and on to the model. And so we'll have constant power coming in off of the jack down below on the base. And then the negative on the same thing will come on here. There'll also be a third wire that'll come off that will connect to this wire I've got marked trigger, which is the momentary switch trigger for the firing of the photon torpedo. So you push the button once on the remote, it'll fire 3 shots out the front. If you push it twice, it'll fire 1 shot out the rear. So, but that'll connect over to our remote control board once we get that worked in. So that's pretty much set up for that. Now we're going to take the positive for the red LED in the back. Remember, this one over here was for the ambers. So we'll just go ahead and hook this red one up, and on our instructions it says the red one connects to the red wire coming out of connector number 3. So connector number 3 is this one here, and let's just find our red wire on that. Okay, that wire hasn't been used yet, so that's how Ralph is separating out the front between the rear. So let's go ahead and snip this guy a little shorter. Same thing here, and I've got to grab a little bit of shrink tube, heat shrink. Okay, cut off a little piece of that, and we'll slide it on our wire beforehand and not try to do it afterwards like happens to me a lot of the times. Okay, so here we go. Get this ran through there, and then we'll strip this wire and this one. The wires on that control board are a little tougher than the wire I'm using here. Okay, so we'll just kind of get this wrapped up. Alrighty. Now, I don't really want to solder over the top of my control board there. We'll get that off to the side first to make sure. And we'll solder this one. Alright, got that one going. Now we can come over with the shrink wrap and figure out what I did with my lighter. Here it is. Presto. Now again, I'll get all these, once I'm done here, I'll get these all tucked away nice and neat. Okay, so now we've got the final one here, the red that's coming off of the ring of fire, I call it, the ring of 8 amber LEDs. I'll bring this underneath all this stuff. Alright. Definitely get this looking better here towards the end. Okay, now we got to read and see where that goes. Okay, that one goes to the brown or purple wire on number 3 connector. So we've got a purple right here. Pick your color. I don't actually see a brown. Well, I guess that's kind of looks more orange to me, or maybe it's tan, but we'll use the purple one. Again, we can cut this a little shorter. And strip this off and get this other one ready to go, shorten up a little bit. Yeah, we can cut quite a bit of that off. shrink here. Wrap for the last time. Now the only lights that that I still have to work on to this are got that forward impulse grill in red, which I'm just going to do a little bit of LED tape, and then we've got two little lights up here on the top on the outside of the doghouse, I call it, the shuttle bay area, and then our two wing floodlights, which I'm using these lighthouse LEDs for that I showed you last time. And we'll be done with all the lighting, so that's a big step too. I can go ahead and cancel out this instructions now before my email starts blowing up while it's open and driving you guys crazy. Okay, and let's get this. Just making sure I push it over out of the way. I don't want to solder over the top of that board and have it drip on it. Gots to be careful, you know. Okay, so that one's soldered up. Let's pull our heat shrink back over the top of this. And we're going to be ready to test this here, guys. Hopefully we'll keep our fingers crossed that it works. Alright, presto. So we've got our plus and our minus here. These will all be separated and covered up. I'm leaving them open now, like I said, because I'm going to bring a plus and a minus wire off of these two lugs here and up straight through the open hole in the top, which is going to be bringing power up to all, the last remaining stuff I'm going to do up here. All the lights that are going in my shuttle bay, and the two little wing lights up here, the flood lamps, and the little marker lights on the tops of those manifolds, and also the impulse engine. So that's all we'll need to do, and once we wrap that up, we'll just kind of tidy everything up. But let me spin this guy around. Okay, everybody, we're back with you. I took a quick break here and repositioned the camera, put it on the tripod, and I've got it aimed at the photon launcher here for you so you can see it up close. You can see we've also got our nice looking impulse engines lit up now with our grills all diffused and everything. Happy with how that looks. Didn't want those to be crazy bright, just illuminating. I actually went around the edges of them a little bit there with that Tamiya smoke to make them kind of trail off a little bit. I like how that looks. But we've got our wiring all tidied up on the photon launcher here, connected to 9 volts power. And so now I've got this little trigger wire here that normally, like I said, hooks up to a momentary switch. You hit the switch once and it fires 3 shots out the front. Hit it twice and it fires 1 out the rear. So I should just have to touch this on this ground wire twice and the photon should fire. So let me give it a shot here. There's 1 and there's 2. And presto, guys, we got photon action. All right. All right, you can see it ramps up, it fires, the outer ring illuminates, and then that center one turns red and fires, and then the whole thing slowly ramps down, which is a really nice effect. I think that's my favorite part of the whole thing. But Ralph at Tenacontrols did an outstanding job on this. I think it looks beautiful. Really makes a nice upgrade on the model instead of just having a boring red glowing light coming out of the thing. So it's definitely worth it to get this, and the other effects that you get with the control board are nice too. Let me try it once more. Gotta touch it just right. Once, twice. There we go. Never get tired of firing photon torpedoes, guys. I'll probably wear that switch out once I get this all going, but there you have it, everybody. So now things are going to kind of come to a standstill on this as far as being able to close it up at this point, because I mentioned I'm going to have to wait a couple days until my other board gets here for the remote part, so I can mount that in here and get that all connected up. When we get that in, we'll come back with another update and show you that going in. I'm going to be working on the side, getting the painting done on the top half of the wings. I'm going to paint those before I try to put it down, because I think I can do a lot easier job handling it and everything. I've got to move it all around when I'm doing all that masking. I don't want the big long neck hanging off the front, bashing it into stuff and all that. So we'll get that all finished up. One more thing that I'll mention here, I'll take the power and disconnect it here, and I'll show you. Let's back up as far as we can so I can show you this. One thing I forgot to mention here is that all the way around, if I get you a good angle on this, all the way around this whole edge right here, where this rear, these fill-in panel pieces go in, the rear bulkhead and these filler panels between the top and the bottom go in. I went around that entire thing with a bead of CA glue. After I glued it, of course, I glued it with regular model glue. You don't want to use CA glue to glue plastic together for your primary holding source. It won't work. I mean, it'll hold temporarily, but it could, you know, crack and come loose. It's not actually penetrating into the plastic. CA is not meant to do that. So I used regular model glue and just kind of glued everything in place. After it dried, I came back with a bead of CA glue all the way across here, all the way from side to side, and that way it's going to seal up any light leaks that I might have here, because I'm going to come in here with my airbrush and I'm going to spray black all the way along that line right there and cover all that up. I'm going to spray over the top of the LEDs. I'm going to spray over the top of anything that's like these little wing LEDs that are in here. I can't spray over these up here because they're shining down onto that. We don't need to worry about that, but I'll spray over these so they don't leak anything into the inside, and we'll have it all wrapped up. Once we mount that little remote control board over here, we'll bring that into the power like I said. We'll clean up the rest of these wires we're not going to use, and then this thing is ready to be sealed up. So we're making really good progress, guys, and I've only been working on this about a week or so in total, and we're getting pretty close to the end already. Once I finish, the biggest step left to do is to paint that whole top part, but once we get past that, we're really going to be on the downhill run. So we'll be back with probably going to wrap this thing up with maybe 1 or 2 more updates. So I hope you guys will keep tuned in and following along. Really appreciate all the positive comments. And if you have any questions about something that we're working on going forward, just drop a line on the comment section of the video, and we'll be happy to answer it for you and show you if there's something specific you want to see. So that'll be a wrap for this one, everybody. Katinga's looking really good. I'm really pleased. This is one of the funnest kits that I've worked on in a while. I'm having a blast working on this. And I may build another one at some point, and hopefully they're going to release some parts to do the Kronos 1, the brass details and the different bridge and everything, and I'd like to have a shot at doing that one too, and that's a really neat looking paint job on that kit too. So we'll be back next time, everybody. Take care out there, have fun building your models, and we'll see you next time.